Why 90% Indian startup fails within 5 years of inception? I believe this topic is important because at this stage we are finding everywhere in India there is all-round awareness about entrepreneurship, and mainly our young population are wanting to have some alternative career option in a startup. And environment is also congenial because there will be support from government from different side to start up and do something which is fruitful fruitful as a career. Now there may be a problem, that's startup failure. And it's not that today only we are hearing about startup failure. We have been hearing about startup failure for a long time. We basically much aware of the startup failure in US because the reason that data availability is much higher there in US. Every time that country depends on their level of entrepreneurship, therefore track data that how much the startups are coming into the mainstream and what is their failure rate. This data helps them to take corrective action so that the spirit of entrepreneurship gets going, and because of that the economy as a whole gets developed. Therefore entrepreneurship system and this startup has always attracted attention in US, but this has also started happening in India because we find that lot of interest for developing entrepreneurship who actually are the contributor to economic development. So from every stakeholder here, being from the government, are interested to know that what is the failure rate. Just I want to draw an analogy here before I go in details. That see, when a baby is born, and that's a startup in that own sense, and during that time it required to have many medication, which is preventive medication, so that the baby reaches to the toddler age and then grow up and be a full-fledged human being, full-grown human being. And therefore, in the initial stage, it required to be put under care because the failure rate could be high at that time. Similarly, this analogy applies to startup also. Similarly, it applies to that situation of startup. But these startups, which are young in age and started, and within 5 years of inception, if they fail, that's not good because it takes time, it takes preparation on the part of entrepreneurs, and therefore, if there is a failure, it is not good for the economy as a whole, not good for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, you know. Therefore, that requires to be handled very carefully. I'll be sharing you right now why the failure happens in Indian system. As I say, we are quite good in understanding in the developed countries, because they have data. They want to understand, analyze the failure, and take corrective action. I will be discussing with you today about the Indian system and the failures of startup within 5 years of inception. And that's why it's very important for us, not only you listening to me today, but at the same time, it's important for the policymakers. As an entrepreneurship promoter like me, it's important, very important to understand why it fails so that we can take corrective action here. You know, Now I believe you can hear me more clearly. Yes. Yeah. So audio has improved, I believe. Yeah, audio is good now. Okay, good. So you can see in the PPT, that starts are important for economic development. On the left side of the screen, you see that's US situation. On the right side, I've depicted that is in green color, that is in Indian situation. You know, in US, there is an all-round interest in startup, and 47.5% of the private workforce, are engaged in some form of entrepreneurship. I believe now PPT is there. PPT, yeah, Ranish, are you able to see the PPT? I'm showing the PPT. No, but we have uploaded the PPT. Yeah, yes, Mr. Rao. They're still saying PPT is not visible. It's there. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, possibly admin can help you little bit in that direction. Yeah, yeah, okay. Raghavendra, all you'll be able to see the PPT right now. Yeah. So I will now with that I will continue again. In US, small business employed 58.9 million people, or 47.5% of their workforce in 2015. One very important study, I don't know how many of you are knowing, that is Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. That's a study being conducted across the different countries of the world by Babson College of USA and London Business School, trying to find out, that what is the level of entrepreneurship in different countries in the world. That GEM study and the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor study that shows that 14% working age population out of the working age population are running new businesses. A growing number of people consider entrepreneurship as the best career option at this juncture. 51% of the working population believe that there exist good opportunities in starting business. It's very, very encouraging for US situation. If 51% believe that entrepreneurship is the key, that's is very, very good situation for any country to happen in the framework of entrepreneurship development. On the other hand, it's not too bad in India as well. You can see here in the PPT, I have written that entrepreneurship, with strong demographics and open commercial culture is flourishing, has grown up from 15,000 in 1980 to 100,000 in 2010. That's itself is a good sign, you know. And with the average age of 28, India's entrepreneurship rank among youngest in the world. Also, formalization of startup economy has been increasing, with funding of startup companies more than doubling between 2014 and 2015. Therefore, in India, it is not bad either. It's picking up and it's showing a very improved sign of entrepreneurship ecosystem in India. Therefore, at this backdrop, I'll be talking about entrepreneurship failure. That failure within 5 years of their startup. And that itself is very important to understand that why the entrepreneurs, those who have started today and within 5 years, they are facing the failure. And what in the other context I'm saying, the entrepreneurship ecosystem in India is bubbling. But there is a failure. As I have said, that even in USA, where entrepreneurship is in full bloom, always, there is also a failure. But in every economies, we are trying to reduce the failure rate. so that every enterprises growing up, you know, they meet the success. Therefore, today is very important day for me as well as to you, because I'll be analyzing the failure, why failure happened, which type of enterprises are getting failed, all very important understanding that we are getting. And thanks to the data available to us by some of the companies, who are doing research on India. Now see, as well as usual, the right side, that is in the green one, it talks about Indian failure. Why startup failed in the 5 years of inception? That is in the green color I have pasted. And on the other side, that is in the left side of my PPT, you know, there is a wonderful research finding from US level, you know, that study was done by a Harvard University professor, Professor Ghosh, about the failure of the startup who were funded by the venture capital. He pointed out a very difficult picture in the global level. His research indicated that as many as 75% of venture backed companies never return cash to the investor. And around 30 to 40% of those liquidated assets where investors lose all of their money. His findings of this Wall Street Journal article is based on research of more than 2,000 venture capitalist backed companies who raised at least $1 million from 2004 to 2010. So this is a sample based study, but indicated not a good picture of sickness or failure in the startup in those 2000 he studied, Professor Ghosh, and published an article in Harvard Business Review. In Indian situation, let me come back to Indian situation. We have a company, Zelerate, where I'm saying we had a company because this has been taken over by a Chinese company, a startup tracker company, Zelerate, founded in 2015 by Rishabh Lavania and Keshu Dubey, did some wonderful research for Indian startup failure. I am taking data from their study. According to Zeller8, 2218 Indian startup began operation during 2014, which they study, of course, across a range of sectors. And this sector are the sunrise sector in Indian economy. E-commerce, health technology, robotics, logistics, business intelligence, and analytics, food technology, and online recruitment. And everybody of us wanted to know what happened to them. Those startups started in the sunrise sector, did they come over successfully the 5 years of the inception period, which is very critical for any startup in any country of the world, and that standard. According to Zeller8 data analyzed by them during 2016, 997 of 2281 Indian startup they surveyed failed within 5 years of inception in the Indian context. And therefore, I can safely say that about 43% failure, which Zeller8 during the study of 2281 Indian startup failed. It's very, very important findings, nevertheless, because these are the sector we call sunrise sector in Indian economy. And these are the timing, 14-16, where, all round interest were there by the different stakeholder to promote new businesses for contributing to the Indian economy. And 43% failed. Now, nevertheless, I'm not going to compare with American failure rate and Zeller8 Indian context failure rate, because practically, it will not lead to any result because there are sampling are different and different environment. Till I have more research on that, I not comment or compare with American system with Indian system. But it's good enough to talk about that Indian startup failure within 5 years of inception in the science sunrise sector. I believe that all of you, like me, are wanting to know why they failed, and that's very important for us to know. And learning from the failure, that's very important all around, and it's continued from from the day we started understanding that how entrepreneurship grows. So now I am bringing you can see in front of you, that who are the startup which started during that 14 to 16 who failed and considered in the study by Zeller 8. Highest number of casualties in the red hot sector like logistics, e-commerce, food technology, where some Indians are most successful startup operate. We have success also in this sector. We are wanting to know why, you know, problem, what problem, it's it failed and the solution. I'm trying to make you understand the context. Then I'm slowly coming by the failure rate and what can be done here. Gautam, please, Mr. Prabhu, please wait for 2 minutes more, 2 to 5 minutes more. Let's understand who failed, and then it will be good enough to discuss why they failed. Now, in the graph, you can see logistics. They failed. 22.99% of the surveyed industry failed. E-commerce 19.6%, food tech 18.7%, analytics, which is order of the day, they are also a failure. Now you will be surprised. You will be surprised that some of the companies which I am talking about, they were very good startups in the beginning. Name maybe some of you familiar, Fashionera, lifestyle store. Some of the case I can present of their failure. Fashion marketplace done by none. Dejo, Spoonjoy, Eatlot in the food takes place. Other prominent failure were marketplace, Talent Age, TalentPad.com, leather activity startup, Tuski, on-demand laundry services startup like Tula. These are the failure. See, these are the failure who failed during that time. Now see, you can see by yourself who are those companies. They started so nicely, and after that, I'll be throwing light why they failed. Why they failed. Now you need to understand them fast before I start throwing that why they failed. Now see, Fashionera. It is a Bangalore-based fashion retailer. Shut down operation. Done by none. Fashion market came out with a big way 2014 and failed. Dajo, maybe some of you maybe heard about Dajo because you know, they came up with a big bang. Bangalore-based startup Dajo decided to wind up operation less than a year after inception. The firm is the latest in light of food tech startup to quit the place and roll back operation as funding harder to come. We were scaling up as per the owner, Shashank Singhal. We were scaling up, looking to get into more cities, but we are running short of capital. So they failed. Another important failure. Possibly I can show you. Spoonjoy, that based in Delhi and parts of Bangalore, failed within 2-3 hours of operation. Eatlot failed. Tuski, a 500 startup backed online marketplace for discovering and monetizing leather activity. It should have run very nicely, quietly stopped operation. Last August, it failed to scale up at a time when funding environment had started tightening. Talent Pad That recruitment website, recruitment company, they failed in the marketplace. Tuski, the leisure activity companies, which are doing, some of the companies are doing very well, but this company failed. We are intending to analyze why they failed per se, why these companies failed as per data provided to us. Tular, particularly, this company raised a lot of enthusiasm around it because we know that on-demand laundry startup is very much sought after in the big cities where people are very busy. They are roaming around in different activities, so they required it. Within 24 hours, they promised. Tular owned up operation in January 2015. Apparently, Tular was facing shortage of funding. Sustainable revenue model, did they have? Working capital, did they have? They say that was a problem for them. That was not there, when the startup was failed and it was analyzed. Now, I'm taking to, we have seen some of the companies that have failed within few years of operation. What are the root cause? Why they failed? What are the research finding saying why they failed? What is the benefit of understanding why they failed, which I'll be coming across right now? The reason will be that we'll be careful, we'll be learning from the mistake that they have done. The same company, another company, Washup, is running well. Maybe Tular better than Tular, but why Tular failed? You know, we have data also on that. Why the companies failed? These companies that we have shown, that we have seen. By seeing these last two PPT, you never imagined during that time that these will be failure because they raised the hope of many and there was a demand in the marketplace, but they failed. Let's see, go one by one. What are the causes of failure of these companies? That will be very important. Those who are planning to have a startup in the near future, Therefore, let's go for that. Now you can see why entrepreneur experienced failure. What the 100 venture capitalists, out of their understanding of the failure rate in India, they are saying on the left side, that is the reason of failure for USA. For the time being, I will go fast the Indian failure rate of the companies that we have talked. The failure, basically these companies that we have talked, if you see the reason of failure, that combined into prominent 6 reasons. The failure, prominent 6 reason. You can see the reason, the top of the reason is undifferentiated business model, lack of sufficient skill, very important point. These are, I'll be elaborating these points as well. Insufficient funding, inadequate mentoring and startup leaders, unethical business conduct by the startup, inexperienced leadership. These are the 6 prominent reasons for the startup which I have shown you that has failed within 5 years of their operation. They came with a big bang. They were promising. They were understanding the market, but alas, they failed. Therefore, we must understand this reason, which are very important, so that we can avoid these reasons of failure. Learning from the mistake. That's what we call learning from the mistake. That is the keyword here. With an example, that what do you mean by these 6 failures that happened with the business? Undifferentiated business model. Now, analyzing lead to one thing, undifferentiated business model. Business model is nothing but input, output, and in between there is the black box. Everything happening within the black box, input, raw material, and other put from the left side of the black box. On the right side, it's coming as which is offered to the client or the customer and which is enthralling them, and that's called business model. Now, business model is unique for every businesses. Here, the reason for failure of these companies that I have talked, they are saying the reason is mimicry. The reason is blind copying some of the business model already in the market. They are prone to emulate already successful ideas from elsewhere. While such mimicry can create value by fine-tuning already successful concept, generally it precludes sustainable expansion. Consequently, despite countries' large market size, robust startup activity, Indian startup comprise only 4% of globally recognized unicorn startup business, valued at US 1 billion or more. Now, mimicry, lack of innovation in the business model, lack of customization of the business model as per the requirement of the day or the situation or the locality. That is one of the biggest cause the venture capitalists which surveyed and did put their money in the company in their startup, they are analyzing. So one reason is that undifferentiated business model. This is my personal experience is also saying that's very, very true. We need to do some innovation very quickly, in the entrepreneurship level and the enterprise level, and have business model of our own. Have business model which is customized and which is the exclusive business model for a particular entrepreneur. It's not copying from somebody else and implementing ditto. That's hurt the company that we have seen. Sustainable expansion requires innovative business model. That's one requirement of the day. Many times we have been seeing all around, and there is a tendency for mimicry. That's to be avoided. If I want to be successful in the 5 years, during the 5 years, because after 5 years, I find that the businesses are getting the maturity. And during that 5 years period, it's very vulnerable, very vulnerable, very vulnerable. So this is one reason, of business failure. You may not believe this, the second reason, but I like to emphasize on that. This is very important. Lack of sufficient skill. Lack of sufficient skill. You may like to argue with me that we have the skill, and because of the skill, we have made a startup. But see what is the finding is saying that 70% of the venture capitalists say that the startup failed because they were unable to obtain employee with right skill. Now we need to understand here. Any business that gets started, it requires to have requisite skill, in to tide over the uncertainty that is around an enterprise at the startup. Now, how an entrepreneur, they overcome the tide or the, the turbulent that is surrounding the new enterprise. It's just like a baby. If the environment around the baby is turbulent, the baby becomes uncomfortable. Similarly, the startup. Startup is a baby, and the environment is turbulent. And when the environment is turbulent, it's required to be given protection. And the protection is with the help of skill. Who provides the skill? The man behind the enterprise, that is the entrepreneur, cannot have all the skill of the world. For example, if you see the right side, Mr. Bhatia. I believe one must know, who started Indigo in 2004 from the scratch. He didn't have all the skill on the earth. But today, Indigo is so successful. How he managed? It's because of the team that he built up. You remember a person called Ghosh as the general counsel he recruited? It was a sufficient role of Mr. Ghosh, in the mega aircraft order the biggest in India's aviation history. Mr. Ghosh handled all complex legal aspects with manufacturers and lessors because Mr. Ghosh had the skill to handle that because he was doing before joining Indigo in that particular line only. Mr. Bhatia of Indigo, he roped in, not only is roped in, he roped in many others to build up a team. It's just like a cricket team playing with another country, Indian cricket team. If you have a good team, you are going to win. If you have a bad team, you are not going to win. The captain cannot win the game. You require to have good team, and the captain has the responsibility to build up the team. The same thing happens here. And see, 70% of the venture capitalists said that the startup failed because of team. Because of team. Therefore, it's very important that we make the team which is correct for the game to play. And the game here is to run the business. If everybody done it. If Tata has become so successful, they are a team comprising of Lucy Modi. If Ambanis are so successful, you will find that team is working there. So the team is very important at the startup. This is the solution. Once the solution we have been thinking of, the team making. See here, one Harvard professor, how he is saying the team in his own way. See, the team, can you see the founder down below? And founder is projecting the team. If you can see the PPT, you can see the sketch here. Have you seen the sketch? See, down below is the founder, and on the founder, the team is raised. Because it's the primary duty of the founder to raise the team of requisite skill. The founder cannot have all the skill in the world. Nobody is having in that way. Therefore, it's required the founder to build a team. Very important at startup. If you don't have a startup with good team backup, it's 5 years will be dangerous period, vulnerable period for any startup. Therefore, the reason one which venture capital is found in this study that is commonly happening in case of Indian startup, which we require to avoid if we want to be successful and tide over the 5 year, that are very vulnerable 5 year. Even though if you see after 5 years also, very interesting for you as well as to me, very interesting to me as well as to you. See, if you go to Indigo website at this juncture, see the team that Rahul Bhatia is projecting, his wonderful skill set of people that managing the entire business, is so important. It says in the parlance of entrepreneurship, actually I coined this term, that if you have team, you are winning. If you don't have team, you are losing. That is the only key here in tiding over the turbulent situation. Another very third out of 6, this is the third common mistake which had the bad, impact on enterprise startup and failure. And we have been talking about it always, insufficient funding. Here also the same thing echoed. 65% of venture capitalists say Indian startups are unable to source necessary funding. Indeed, of 997 startups reported to have failed in 2014 and 15, 97% were unable to obtain external funding. Now, it may not be new finding to you as well as to me, insufficiency of funding. But what is new is that this happens, that you cannot have, one startup cannot have that much of funding which an enterprise owner is likely to have, and that's why the proponent of entrepreneurship, they have been talking about lean startup principle. And these six principles: bootstrapping, flexible equipment, funding solution, thorough managing trade payables, handling receivable, managing inventories, external capital have been talked about. Lean startup, during that period, you are not likely to have a huge funding base. Not likely to have. It's very difficult. It not happen. It doesn't happen in case of during that 5 years of operation. So what we are suggesting as a solution of insufficient funding, I mean to say the proponent of entrepreneurship all over the world. They have been talking about make a good business plan, reflection with reality. My experience suggests that most of the business plan are not reflecting the true reality. I've been talking about over the years in different platforms that it's very, very important that you have a blueprint of 5 years, how things will happen. First 5 years, don't compromise with that. Have this business plan as a full contribution of the entrepreneur himself, the leader, entrepreneur. He has full contribution in building the business plan. It's not somebody make. It's not charter accountant make. Okay, charter accountant can make, but a full contribution of entrepreneurs. Make a wonderful real business plan that allow us to plan to tide over difficult situation. As I said, bootstrapping, don't spend that much of money. Whenever required, spend, but that should be backed by your plan. I must say here, there could be two plans. One is long-term plan, one is short-term plan. I'm talking about the long-term plan. Some of the emergent plan would be there. That will be handled during that period of time when it is required, as and when, emergency. But we have a long plan, you know, we have a long plan. That is called business plan. It's very important for entrepreneurs to understand how the business plans are made, how the business plan reflects the reality. And that is essentially required. As 60% of the venture capitalist stage says that in the startup are dying. One of the reason is insufficient funding, and the insufficient funding happening because they did not foresee what is going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years from now. Uh, See, another important understanding by failure is this study is showing that 64% venture capitalists believe that Indian startups struggle to succeed because their executive did not receive adequate mentoring. It's very important that look the enterprise from the outside. You know, look the enterprise from the outside. I have I was fortunate to have mixing with the entrepreneurs in Sweden. You know, they like to have, you know, views from the outside, not insider views. Insider views, many a time we don't understand who we are, what wrong or mistake that we have been doing. Enterprise requires also that. The enterprise require the outside view. Who will be giving this outside view? Mentors. The mentors with a good motive, they are the mentors. That mentors give wonderful advice. It may be pinching, it may be disturbing mentally for the entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurs must listen to the voice from the outside because this mentor has a good motive. See what Kunal is saying, but Kunal is not unknown like now, likely to you right now. He is the CEO of Snapdeal, very well known entrepreneur. He said entrepreneurs should look for an investor who is also a mentor. Who is also a mentor is very important that whenever I get entrepreneurs, I link them to the mentors of right type of mentors who can give them right advice. So adequate mentoring from the experienced leader of established company, incubators, investors, because formal, though there are many accelerators, but entrepreneurs need to see that who could be his good mentor. who has experience in this line, who have reason to believe that has good motive to support him, with all sorts of outside views, that will be wonderful. That will be wonderful to cover up these 5 vulnerable years of startup phase, which is very susceptible to sickness. So this is the fourth reason. Fifth reason is very disturbing again. The fifth reason, unethical business conduct by the startup. Many would like to argue that we have been unethical all along, but 64% of the venture capitalists say that those startups are not successful due to poor business ethics. Business ethics sounds very difficult term, but I can make this term little bit understandable into macro level or micro level. Sorry, misreporting financial and other data in order to in order to blow the whistle that I'm doing well. Misrepresentation of financial plan. Again, the bugle, tendency to blow the bugle that I'm doing well. Ignorance of regulatory requirement can have a serious impact on willingness of the prospective partners to fund and collaborate in the new startup when it is required most. A toddler boy cannot walk unless his parents are holding his or her hand. At that time, you require support, these 5 years. Then after, free. 5 years, vulnerable years. I'm repeating it again. Why? Misreporting of financial and other data, misrepresentation of financial plan, ignorance of regulatory requirement. Nipun Mehrotra, Chief Digital Officer IBM India and South Asia, he is also echoing this. The same feeling, unethical business conduct by startup. That is again taking a toll on the startup. It's so wonderful to have startup. It's wonderful to take up a journey with entrepreneurship because the future becomes so secured, future becomes so bright, which none salaried job can give, no one. So, but precaution for the 5 years, that's vulnerable years. Let's come to last and reason which the venture capitalist studies and the reasons for Indian failure of Indian startup within 5 years. They are saying inexperienced leadership. We understand. We understand inexperienced leadership. Why? Because at that time entrepreneurs are very new, they are inexperienced, they have startup, and this inexperience is taking a toll on the business startup. 45% of Indian venture capitalists assert that the presence of proven leader is an essential gradient in their willingness to invest in startup. Inexperienced leadership is the key reasons of startup failure. Economic implication of this mismatch can be significant, with venture capitalists often passing up investor opportunity due to a lack of credible management. See, I can demonstrate this with the help of but with a very sad heart. I must confess that when I see this company, Tiny Owl, you can see the face of the founder, Saurabh Goel. This was a food ordering firm. Tiny Owl came up with the business with lot of prospect, lot of big bang, but it vanished so quickly from the business. Why? See, according to his voice, and he confessed, despite raising 23 million dollar funding from Sequoia Capital, Matrix, Nexus Venture Partner in 2014, had to fire 300 employees in the next year. Then he confessed, Saurabh confessed, we were spending money like crazy. 100 delivery boys were not needed. Not only inefficiency, he confessed, even our product took a hit in terms of service. Many customers started reporting back. It's not good. Service is not to the mark. For example, when we were selling our delivery fleet, we had 1,000 delivery boys, but the kind of scale we had over not there. But we recruited so many delivery boys, but they are not giving delivery quality service. Unfortunately, during 2016, it shut down its countrywide operation, except in Mumbai, and because the scale reason that also went down. Now see, this is called inexperienced leadership. Entrepreneur is the leader of their business. Just like Gandhi was the leader of our Indian freedom. He led, and he led from the front, and we followed him. Similarly, entrepreneurs and leaders. I don't know how many entrepreneurs you have seen who are successful in their own domain, but always we see them as a leader, and really in their own field. In their own field, they're a leader. They have every understanding that should this company follow, his company should follow. Everybody in the organization are followed, including the team that I have talked about with versatile skill. They are a follower. So, if had Saurabh Goel led from the front with his leadership and efficient management, the company would have been there till today. So, unfortunately, we missed another bright startup, from the Indian horizon, and that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. So these are the reasons of failure. These reasons are quite interesting and and giving us a learning experience, which is very important. Why? Because these are not old. These are reflected our country's startup. These are reflected from our own people failure. These are so reality in this context, and we don't want to fall into the trap again. So in this webinar, my intention and the intention of talking to you is that these 6 mistakes during the 5 years could be costly, could be very costly, very, very costly. Not only to you, the entrepreneur, but at the same time, the country. Because when entrepreneurship grows, the country gets economically developed. So country requires you entrepreneur, who start up, survive for the first 5 years, and then take it to the next level where growth, it does make entrepreneur happy at the personal level. It does make country happy at the country level, because country's GDP are getting nourished from the entrepreneurs' contribution from each farm. Therefore GDP of the country also grows. Therefore, it's very, very important to understand that these are the costly mistake that we require to avoid during the 5 years of our operation. I believe that these are the reasons. That's why we are here. That's why we are here, and we want to take you to this journey. See, with time, with time. I've given a name also there. Zombie, Excel, So many enterprise will come, and some would be pampers, some would be zombies, some would be Excels. Excels are those who have completely avoided all the mistakes. Zombie, yeah, this way or that way. Pampers, they require push so that they avoid the mistake, failure. These are the reasons for failure that basically we wanted to highlight. And this is very important, not only, for us, for the early startups, where we understand that making this, making this 6 causes of failure. I go back to the first PPT again, where the 6 causes of failure, which I have explained. Again, I'm repeating: undifferentiated business model, lack of sufficient skill, insufficient funding, inadequate mentoring at the startup leaders, unethical business conduct by the startup, experienced leadership. These are the 6. These are the 6 reasons for failure, and we need to avoid. And I told you in course my discussion how to avoid this failure. These 6 leading causes of Indian startup failure, and thereby making this country a great country to live with, the company of great Indian entrepreneurs. With that I finish my lecture today in this webinar. I believe you have understood my point, and you have understood the basic reasoning that I have made, you know. So I believe thereafter I'm open to some few questions which you like to put. No, few questions you would like to put. Yeah. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you for thank you, Bipin. Thank you, Bipin, for liking this presentation. But I'll be more liking that if you start your enterprise with avoiding all the six mistakes that have. It is a great. Okay, Soma ma'am. Yeah, thank you very much, Srinivas, Soma, Nirav. Thank you very much for appreciating. Thank you, Said, for acknowledging that it's a good learning. Some questions, if you have, can you emphasize this more? Thank you, Kalyan. Thank you, Mundra. We'll be in touch. Do something good for you as well as the country. Yeah. What is your suggestion to share equity for investment in the new company? Okay. Thank you, Prince, for understanding this is a great learning. How to control bootstrapping. See, as always, I'm saying, taking a few questions from your side. I've been in entrepreneurship for a long period of time. You know, long period of time, and I know that it's very difficult that to get a business plan prepared with the wholehearted participation of an entrepreneur. Nevertheless, I will dare to say that many businesses are getting started without a practical business plan. And many a time we treat business plan only for funding companies to understand, but not for us. Now, I give a reality understanding. Suppose in a day-to-day planning or a planning for my next 5 years, what I'll be doing. If I don't have a plan, how can I take my journey to the next 5 years? Because I don't have a plan. And I'm bound to go this way and that way. And we are talking about that phase of 5 year, which is a vulnerable phase. Vulnerable phase. So I always, whenever I meet entrepreneurs, I always indulge them in making business plan, and teach them also that this is the nitty-gritties of the business plan. And do this business plan with your full-fledged involvement so that every aspect of how the business will be derived for the next 5 years is within your understanding. And then I say emergent plan, which are emergent plan are not long-term plan, that are time contingent, that we'll be taking. But you have a finally a good business plan, that has been made, which is reflective of the 5 year business, and you are following them. If there is any divergence, you make up, but don't go beyond the basic structure that you have suggested. You know, Madhuri ma'am is saying, is Narendraji, finding externally, it's always people are asking that how to manage, how to get external funding. I believe that if you have a good business idea, that idea is not opportunity. The venture capitalists suggest that out of 1,000 opportunities, 1,000 ideas, there will be one or two business opportunity. Many people mistake that ideas are opportunity. The US Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, they keep a thumb rule that 1,000 ideas bring only 2 to 3 opportunities. So that opportunity has to be vetted. That yes, this is opportunity. I was talking about mimicry. Many a time we find that well, this has been done in USA, so I can do in here, just copying it. But their business model and this business model are different because these two work in two environments. So it has to be perfectly vetted that this business plan is exclusive, opportunity is a real opportunity. I have not seen anybody with a good opportunity. He has a lack of funding. Many people, those who are venture capitalists, they have money. They want to invest. Where? It requires good opportunities. Therefore, That is the most required, and this has been echoed in the findings as well. You know, that's a echoed in the that finding of Indian sickness of social media. I believe. Thank you very much for participating. Okay, we have been see all these things will be discussed in the course that we are studying. On entrepreneurship. This what we have talked about. This all will be covered in the course that IIFT is going to start. In the online platform. And this will be taken care of because these findings have been taken into while developing the course structure. Because when we develop this course structure, we put these findings of Indian business failure in front and try to develop the course in according to that. So all these, how to have this sufficient funding, inefficient, undifferentiated business plan, preparing a business plan, inexperienced leadership, how it can be converted into experienced leadership. Every aspect has been taken care of in the course that we are starting, very soon. Keep a tag on IIFT website, so that we can find you there in the future lecture of this course, which will be commencing. Feel free to contact our people there. Try to send mails as well. If you have any more queries, but we want that Indian startups are coming from ages of crippling with all sorts of sickness in the 5 years, so that we can improve the situation and make this country a beautiful place for living. Can you share some startup ideas? Yeah, that already we have in the course structure. That what are the business ideas and opportunity? How from that 1,000 ideas, which one is opportunity? Finding opportunity from 1,000 ideas. That is one of the key point in our course. That these opportunities are surrounded by in the people's mind. They are coming as idea, but finding these ideas to opportunity, there is a process. Converting ideas into opportunity is the process. Therefore, it requires a good understanding that how ideas can be converted into opportunity. Surely, Chunki ma'am will be doing that in a great way in our course. Lokesh as well. Hard collection of funds from the client is a big challenge. Not at all, as I think, Chunki ma'am. It's not at all, because as I said, that if you have a good opportunity, there are many fund people who are wanting to invest in a fund. That's the reality today. But many people are not having many good ideas, but not good opportunities. So good opportunities required. Yeah, that is Soma ma'am. Yeah, converting ideas into opportunity. Yeah, and that and link up with the capital at the right time. That is the business plan will do. Opportunity, ideas, opportunity, business plan. These are the key pillar of success. So the opportunity ideas convert into opportunity, develop a business plan, fits the time factor there. Where you require capital, when you will be requiring capital, how much capital you will be requiring. One of the very important capital requirement here is the working capital. I was talking about tiny owl. They died because of working capital requirement, and that basically we have crafted in our course also. That how to link working capital when it is required. Yes, Rahul, I'm currently individual is one of you sharing program details. One of the program details. Just a minute. Yeah. Do you want to know? So, what do you want to know? How to get experienced people on your team? Yeah. This is very important. That team is always, I believe this will be the last question to take today. Srinivas, team building, I find that is very interesting. We have very good example of team building in the history of entrepreneurship. See, it started with those days when American companies built a team and started doing business, and successfully doing business. We saw Tata doing wonderful business with team member like Rusi Modi. Recently, I can just to give you an example, that the team building in a small shop even is very important. If you see your nearby shops, who are mom and pop stores, see they have a person who have been rightly trained, and the owner is lot of depending on him or her, so team building is very, very important. We'll be talking more on team building, how to build a team, right people at right place at the start. It's always in entrepreneurship we are seeing that this is one of the very, very important phase for team building. In the course I'll be sharing with some more ideas and some more cases of team building, which will be fascinating to know that how a new enterprise builds a team to get a success. Once you have a team, good team, your Virat Kohli is going to win. If team is bad, even the Virat Kohli cannot win the game. The same thing happens here, So look forward to more interaction with you in the coming days. I believe that thank you very much for participating in this webinar. And if you have any details, you can still mail us, and we'll be replying to that. Thank you. Thank you very much from my side. Wish you a very happy entrepreneurial journey. Thank you very much. Parth, Ajit, Soma, for listening carefully. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Hitesh. Salman, thanks. Naveen, thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks, Neha, Madhavi. Thank you very much. Bye bye.